The first thing I noticed wasn't the missing jewelry or the empty drawer. It was the broken lock hanging crooked from my front door, like someone wanted me to know they had been inside. The police officer standing beside me said it looked like a forced entry, but something about it felt staged. Too clean. Too obvious. Until that afternoon, I would have told anyone my life was boring in the best possible way. I had been married for 11 years. We had a daughter who still left cereal bowls in the sink despite being old enough to know better. My wife worked irregular hours at a medical clinic, and I managed a small construction company. We argued about bills, vacations, and whose turn it was to buy groceries. Normal problems. Problems I would have gladly kept forever. Our neighborhood had always felt safe. We knew our neighbors by name. People borrowed ladders and returned them. Standing in my hallway, surrounded by scattered picture frames and overturned drawers, I kept thinking about one strange detail. The family photo on the wall hadn't been touched. Everything valuable seemed to be gone. But the picture of the three of us was perfectly straight. For some reason, that bothered me more than the theft itself. It felt personal. I couldn't explain why. Not yet. The police walked through every room, taking photos and dusting for fingerprints, while I stood in the kitchen trying to remember whether I'd locked the door that morning. I always did. I was almost obsessive about it. That's why the broken lock kept bothering me. One officer asked if anyone besides my wife and me had a key. My brother used to, I said. But that was years ago. My wife arrived 20 minutes later. She looked shocked when she saw the damage, but her first question wasn't about what had been stolen. Did they go into our bedroom? Something about the way she asked it made me pause. Yeah, I answered. Why? She hesitated for a split second before forcing a nervous smile. I just keep some personal things in there. It was a perfectly reasonable answer, yet it stayed in my head. That night we made a list of everything missing. Cash. My grandfather's watch. Her grandmother's necklace. A laptop. But there were expensive things the thieves had ignored. The television was still there. My camera equipment was untouched. Even the envelope with emergency cash hidden in the hallway cabinet hadn't been opened. It didn't feel like someone searching for valuables. It felt like someone searching for something specific. For the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Friends told us to install better security cameras and move on, but my mind kept returning to the details that didn't fit. My wife became strangely restless after the break-in. She started checking the windows before bed, jumping whenever her phone buzzed, and insisting we replace every lock immediately. I understood being scared, but this felt different. It was as if she was waiting for something else to happen. Then I found the first real crack. While helping her set up a replacement laptop, a cloud backup automatically synced her messages. One conversation flashed on the screen before disappearing. I only caught a single sentence. Did he notice the lock? I froze. When I asked who had sent it, she reached over, closed the laptop, and said it was just a coworker asking about the burglary. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I wanted to believe her. After 11 years together, trust had become automatic. Still, that one sentence echoed in my head. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm sorry this happened." Just one unsettling question. Did he notice the lock? I tried convincing myself I was being paranoid. Trauma does strange things to your brain. After a burglary, every odd glance, every delayed reply, every locked phone starts feeling suspicious. I hated the person I was becoming, quietly watching my own wife instead of comforting her. But the feeling wouldn't leave. A week later, our insurance company asked for receipts and old photos of the missing items. We spent the evening digging through years of files and pictures stored in dusty boxes. While searching the closet, I found a small metal cash box tucked behind winter blankets. It wasn't ours. Inside were a few documents, an old key, and a folded receipt from a motel about 40 minutes away. The date caught my attention immediately. It was from the same weekend my wife had told me she was attending a medical conference with coworkers. When I carried the box downstairs, she went completely pale. "I've never seen that before," she said too quickly. "Then why is it hidden in our closet?" I don't know." She wouldn't even look at the receipt. Instead, she kept staring at the old key, as though the tiny piece of metal scared her far more than anything a burglar could have taken from our house. I didn't sleep that night. The motel receipt sat on the kitchen table, and the old key was beside it. Every time I looked at them, I expected my wife to finally tell me the truth. Instead, she stayed unusually quiet, answering every question with the same exhausted phrase. "I don't know." The next morning, curiosity got the better of me. I drove to the address printed on the receipt. The motel was exactly what you'd expect. Faded paint, flickering vacancy sign, and a manager who looked like he'd worked there forever. I showed him the receipt and asked if he remembered anything. "I can't discuss guests," he said at first. Then he glanced at the date. "Actually, wasn't there a break-in that weekend?" My stomach tightened. "What kind of break-in?" He shrugged. "Someone reported a damaged door. Looked like forced entry, but nothing valuable was missing." Those words hit me like ice water. A broken lock. Signs of forced entry. Nothing important stolen. Exactly like what had happened at my house. Driving home, I stopped pretending it was coincidence. Whoever staged the burglary at the motel might be connected to whoever staged the one at my home. And somehow, my wife already knew enough to be afraid. When I got home, my wife was sitting at the kitchen table exactly where I'd left her. The key was gone. I didn't even bother asking where it was. "I went to the motel," I said. The color drained from her face. "You had no right." "No right?" I laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Our house gets broken into, I find a receipt you lied about, and somehow I'm crossing a line?" She buried her face in her hands. "It's not what you think." I was tired of hearing that sentence. "Then tell me what it is." For nearly a minute, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, "If I tell you everything, you'll leave." I answered without thinking. "I might leave anyway." She started crying real, uncontrollable tears, but even then she couldn't force the words out. Instead, she admitted only one thing. She hadn't gone to a medical conference that weekend. She'd been at the motel. "With who?" I asked quietly. She looked straight at me, eyes swollen and terrified. "I can't tell you." That hurt more than if she'd simply said another man's name. It meant whoever she was protecting still mattered enough to destroy what little trust we had left. I wish I could say I walked away with dignity, but that's not what happened. I begged. I asked the same question a dozen different ways, hoping one version would finally unlock whatever she was hiding. "Was it an affair?" She shook her head. "Did someone blackmail you?" Another shake. "Are you protecting someone?" Silence. That silence became my answer. Over the next few days, we barely spoke unless our daughter was in the room. We acted like exhausted parents trying to keep life normal, but every smile felt rehearsed. Every family dinner felt like a performance. Then my brother called. He'd heard about the burglary and wanted to stop by. The second I mentioned his name, my wife looked physically sick. "You don't have to invite him over," she said too quickly. I stared at her. "Why would that bother you?" "It doesn't. I just don't think this is a good time." The room suddenly felt too small. She had never had a problem with my brother before. They got along well. She even bought him birthday gifts when I forgot. Now she didn't want him anywhere near the house. For the first time, a thought crossed my mind that I immediately hated myself for having. What if none of this had anything to do with a stranger? I called my brother that evening. I didn't accuse him of anything. I couldn't. The thought alone made me feel sick. This was my family, and I was suddenly looking at everyone like they were strangers. We talked for a few minutes about the burglary, and then I asked a simple question. Did you know my wife went away that weekend? There was a long pause. Too long. I heard something about it, he finally said. My hands started shaking. Heard what? He sighed. Maybe you should ask her. That sentence broke something inside me. My brother had always been the person I trusted after my wife. He was the one who helped me through my father's death. The one who stood beside me at my wedding. I drove to his house without telling my wife. When he opened the door and saw my face, he immediately knew why I was there. I didn't want this to come out like this, he whispered. Those words were enough. I didn't need a confession yet. I already knew. The person I feared had betrayed me wasn't a stranger who broke into my home. It was someone I had invited into my life. My brother didn't deny it. That was the worst part. I stood in his doorway waiting for him to tell me I was wrong. Waiting for him to laugh and say there had been some misunderstanding. Instead, he stepped aside and let me walk in like someone who already knew the damage was done. I never wanted to hurt you, he said. I remember staring at him and thinking how meaningless those words sounded. People always say they never wanted to hurt you right before explaining exactly how they did. I asked him how long it had been. He looked at the floor. Almost a year. A year. For 12 months, I had invited him to family dinners. I had trusted him around my wife and my daughter. I had defended him when other relatives said he was irresponsible. What happened that night at the motel? I asked. He swallowed hard. She wanted to end it. That sentence confused me. She? My brother looked up. Your wife. I felt my chest tighten. Then he said something that completely changed the way I saw the burglary. The broken lock wasn't meant to steal anything. It was meant to scare me into staying quiet. I sat there in my brother's living room, unable to process what I was hearing. The burglary wasn't about my house. It wasn't about stealing my grandfather's watch or my wife's necklace. It was a message. Someone wanted to frighten him. Who did it? I asked. My brother shook his head. I don't know. Then why are you sure it was connected? He rubbed his face and looked exhausted. Because someone broke into my apartment 2 months before you. Same thing. Broken lock. Nothing valuable taken. Just one thing missing. What? He hesitated. A folder. I felt a chill. What was in the folder? Proof. I stared at him. Proof of what? He looked away. That your wife was planning to leave you. I wanted to be angry at him. I wanted to hate him. Maybe part of me still does. But sitting there, hearing those words, all I felt was emptiness. My entire marriage suddenly looked different. Every late night at work. Every secretive phone call. Every time she said she was tired. I wondered how many moments I had ignored because believing the truth was too painful. When I finally came home, my wife was waiting. She didn't ask where I had been. She just said quietly. Your brother told you, didn't he? I don't think I have ever seen my wife look that defeated. There was no anger. No attempt to pretend she didn't know what I was talking about. She just stood there in the hallway, holding herself like she was trying not to fall apart. How long have you known? I asked. She wiped her eyes. About the affair? Since it ended. That answer confused me. Since it ended? She nodded. The relationship with your brother was over before the motel. I was trying to cut him off. I laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. You expect me to believe that? No, she whispered. I don't expect you to believe anything I say anymore. For the first time, she admitted everything. She said it started when I was working constantly and she felt lonely. She said my brother listened when she felt ignored. She said she hated herself for letting it happen. Then she said something that made me feel physically sick. He found out I was pregnant. I couldn't speak. Pregnant with his child, she added quietly. The room went completely silent. And suddenly the broken lock didn't seem like the biggest betrayal anymore. I wish I could say I reacted with anger immediately. I wish I screamed, threw something, demanded answers like people do in movies. But I didn't. I just stood there. My wife's words kept replaying in my head, but my brain refused to accept them. Pregnant. My brother. A child that wasn't mine. Those three things didn't belong in the same sentence. Is the baby born? I finally asked. She shook her head. No. Then what happened? She looked away. I lost the pregnancy. For a second, I felt relief, and I hated myself for that. A terrible, selfish wave of relief washed over me, followed immediately by shame. A baby had been involved. A real life that never got a chance. I sat down because my legs felt weak. She told me my brother had been pressuring her to leave me. He promised they would start over. She said she realized too late that she had destroyed the life she already had. But I couldn't stop thinking about one thing. She wasn't just unfaithful. She had brought my brother into our home, into our daughter's life, and into the place where I was supposed to feel safest. The days after the confession felt like living inside someone else's nightmare. I went to work, answered emails, talked to clients, and acted like I was still the same person. But inside, I felt completely hollow. My daughter noticed first. Kids always notice more than adults think. "Why are you and Mom not sitting together anymore?" she asked one night. I didn't know what to say. How do you explain betrayal to a child without destroying the image they have of their parents? My wife wanted to try counseling. She said she would do anything to rebuild our marriage. She apologized constantly, sometimes crying so hard she couldn't finish a sentence. But every apology felt like it arrived too late. My family found out eventually. My parents were devastated. My mother kept saying she couldn't understand how two people she loved could do this to me. My brother disappeared from everyone's lives. He sent me one message. "I'm sorry. I know nothing can fix this." I never replied. Because he was right. Nothing could fix the fact that every memory I trusted now had a question mark attached to it. 6 months have passed since everything came out, and I still don't know if I made the right choices. I didn't leave immediately. That surprises people when they hear the story. Some friends told me they would have packed a bag the same night. Maybe I should have. Maybe staying was just another way of avoiding reality. But we had 11 years together. We had a child. We had a life that wasn't fake every single day. Some moments with my wife were real. At least I think they were. That is the part that hurts the most. I don't know what memories belong to me anymore. We started therapy, but trust doesn't come back because someone says sorry. It comes back through thousands of small actions, and even then, some damage stays. I changed the locks again. My wife noticed and asked why. I told her honestly. Because I need to know who has access to my home. She cried, but she didn't argue. I think she finally understood that the broken lock was never the thing that destroyed us. It was everything that happened before and after it. I still hear the sound of that broken lock sometimes. Not because I'm afraid someone will break into my house again. Because that was the moment my entire reality started falling apart. Before that day, I thought betrayal looked obvious. I thought people who cheated were careless, distant, or cruel. I never imagined someone could sit beside you at dinner, help your child with homework, kiss you goodnight, and still hide something that could destroy everything. I don't know if my marriage will survive. Some days I think we are only together because we are scared of ending something that lasted so long. Other days, I see the effort she makes and wonder if people can truly change after causing this much pain. I still struggle with anger. I still have moments where I blame myself for not noticing sooner. Maybe I ignored signs because I loved her. Maybe love makes us blind. The one thing I know is this: trust is fragile. Once someone breaks it, you can glue the pieces together, but you will always see the cracks. And every time I look at that new lock on my door, I remember the old one. The one that was broken before I knew my life was broken too.